Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. After the Crusades against Islam, Britain began to form alliances with certain Islamic countries. For instance, Queen Elizabeth I requested naval assistance from the Ottoman Sultan Murad to combat the Spanish Armada. The first known Englishman to convert to Islam was John Nelson in the 16th century. A document from 1641 mentions the presence of a sect of Mahometans in London. During this time, a few other conversions to Islam occurred, and in 1649, Alexander Ross produced the first English translation of the Quran. In the 18th and 19th centuries, several members of the English upper class, such as Edward Montagu, son of the ambassador to Turkey, embraced Islam. Around 300 years ago, the first significant group of Muslims arrived in Britain. These were sailors from India, recruited by the East India Company, leading to the establishment of Muslim communities in port towns. Some of these sailors chose to remain in Britain, often leaving their ships without formal immigration processes. Another wave of Muslim immigration occurred following the opening of the Suez Canal in 1869, which increased trade and created a demand for port and ship workers. Britain's colonial connections meant it had interacted with Islam for several centuries. In the 19th century, the presence of Islam in Britain grew as foreign workers, including Muslims, arrived in seaport cities like London, Liverpool, and Woking, seeking cheap labor. This led to the construction of the first all-purpose mosque in Britain, built in Woking in 1889. However, it was after World War II that the bulk of Muslim immigration to Britain took place. The earliest mosque in Britain was located at 2 Glenrhonda Street, Cardiff, in 1860. The current Muslim population in Britain largely consists of those who immigrated in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, or their descendants. By the early 20th century, there were an estimated 10,000 Muslims in Britain. Many immigrants from the 1950s and 60s hailed from India and Pakistan, drawn by the prospect of earning substantially more in Britain than in their home countries. Some planned to bring their families to Britain once financially stable, while others aimed to save money to buy land back home in Pakistan. Political and social turmoil also drove many to Britain in the 1950s, as people sought to escape the violence and instability following the partition of British India into Pakistan and India. Another significant but lesser-known reason was the construction of the Mangla Dam in the early 1960s, which displaced around 100,000 people in the Mirpur district, with many relocating to Britain. Most immigrants came from agricultural regions like Azad Kashmir and the northwest frontier, areas with long-standing ties to Britain through the British Army and Merchant Navy. Almost all Bangladeshi immigrants originated from Sylhet, which had a tradition of sending migrants to Britain. Initially, these immigrants were primarily men who left their families behind. In Britain, they often lived in communal houses with men from the same villages, creating supportive communities that provided a base, friendship, and financial assistance as they settled into their new lives. Once they saved enough money, they either brought their families over to join them or returned to their homeland. Due to the lack of family and home comforts in Britain, the early immigrants adopted a tradition of working extremely long hours, a practice that the current generation has largely abandoned. Even after their wives joined them, these early Muslim immigrants remained isolated from the host culture because of language barriers and prejudice. The Commonwealth Immigrants Act of 1962 briefly boosted immigration by restricting automatic entry for Commonwealth citizens to those with a work voucher. Today, 85% of British Muslims are Sunni, while 15% are Shia. South Asian and Middle Eastern Islamic reform movements continue to play a significant role in shaping the identity and management of mosques. By 2017, there were 1,125 mosques in the UK, with the majority, 72%, linked to South Asian reform movements. That same year, 72% of mosques had facilities for women, though the quality and extent of these varied. Mosques serve as venues for daily prayers, the weekly Jum'ah, and other community gatherings. They function as important social and sometimes political hubs, offering Quran classes for children, and the larger mosques also host Sharia councils. The Muslim Council of Britain presents its first analysis of the number of Muslims in Britain based on 2021 census data published by the Office for National Statistics, ONS, which includes answers to questions on religion and ethnicity. The population of England and Wales stands at 5960 million, with 3.87 million Muslims, accounting for 6.5% of the total population. Muslims are becoming more dispersed across England and Wales compared to other minority faith groups, prompting further analysis. The top 5 areas with the largest Muslim populations are Birmingham, 341,811, Bradford, 166,846, the London Borough of Tower Hamlets, 123,912, Manchester, 122,962, and the London Borough of Newham, 122,946. The Muslim population has grown by 1.16 million since 2011, when it was 271 million. This increase parallels the overall population growth from 56.08 million in 2011 to 59.60 million. Muslims now account for 33% of the population increase. In 2011, Muslims made up 4.8% of the population, or just under 1 in 20 people. Today, they represent 6.5%, or just under 1 in 15 people. Additionally, the Northern Ireland Statistics Research Agency reports a Muslim population of 10,170, up from 3,032 in 2011. While we await data from the 2022 Scottish census, we know that Scotland's Muslim population was 76,737 in 2011. This growth is driven by a younger population born in the UK, including second and third generation British Muslims, who contribute to the country's economic recovery and vibrancy. Migration also plays a role, with new arrivals from countries affected by conflict and climate change. Muslims are increasingly moving out of concentrated urban areas, continuing a trend observed since 2011. Despite this, they still face disproportionate levels of deprivation. According to an analysis by the Muslim Council of Britain, 40% of the Muslim population in England resides in the most deprived fifth of local authority districts. This represents an increase of almost 482,000 Muslims living in these most deprived areas since 2011. The Muslim Council of Britain, MCB, is the leading representative organization for Muslims in the UK, with a network of at least 380 smaller organizations. Established in 1997, following a meeting of several Muslim organizations, the MCB represents around 70% of Muslims in Great Britain. It consists of national, regional, and local organizations, divided into geographical zones. Several academic and elite organizations also play significant roles in the UK. The Forum Against Islamophobia and Racism, FAIR, founded after September 11th, focuses on lobbying and research. The Muslim Public Affairs Committee, MPAC, works to empower Muslims at the grassroots level. The Islamic Cultural Center, which includes the London Central Mosque, was established in 1944 and is overseen by a board of prominent Muslim trustees, both local and international. The Federation of Student Islamic Societies in the UK and IRI organizes student groups, and the Islamic Mission is involved in education and charity work across the UK. Islamic Relief, founded in Birmingham in 1984, is another key organization. There are over 500 officially registered mosques in the UK, which provides tax benefits and the authority to conduct recognized marriage ceremonies. There is an equal number of unregistered mosques. Out of approximately 1,000 clerics, only about 30 were trained in the UK. Islamic burial practices are respected, with sections in public cemeteries designated for Muslims and several entirely Muslim cemeteries. The issue of headscarves in schools has been debated, but the state has determined that banning them would constitute discrimination. In 2004, a high court in Luton dismissed a complaint from a Muslim girl who was not allowed to attend school wearing the jilbab, a full-length dress covering all but the face and hands. The judge deemed the school policy, which permitted a uniform including the hijab, to be reasonable. This decision was overturned on appeal due to insufficient justification for such restrictions, but the House of Lords ultimately overturned the appeal decision in 2006. That same year, ex-Foreign Secretary Jack Straw MP caused controversy by suggesting that veils covering the face could hinder community relations. Halal slaughter remains permitted in Britain despite some controversy, as the government concluded that banning it would violate the European Convention on Human Rights. Public perception of Islam in the UK was extensively explored in a 1997 report by the Runnymede Trust, which is credited with popularizing the term Islamophobia. Islam has a rich tradition of educational thought and practice, emphasizing individual development, knowledge transmission, social and moral conduct, and God consciousness. Muslims in the UK have been relatively successful in passing on their religious beliefs and practices to subsequent generations. Studies indicate higher rates of intergenerational transmission among Muslims compared to Christians, adherents of other religions, and non-religious people. Most Muslim children in the UK learn to read the Quran in Arabic, whether at daily mosque schools, with independent teachers at home, or even via Skype. In addition to Quran and Arabic lessons, many Muslim supplementary schools offer Islamic studies and formal instruction in ethnic languages and cultures. Despite parents' requests for various state school accommodations related to modesty, food, holidays, timetabling, curriculum, and single-sex education, local education authorities have often responded inconsistently and sometimes in a confused manner. Although most parents send their children to state-run non-religious or Christian schools, some prefer Muslim schools that offer a faith-based Islamic education. The first state-funded, voluntary aided Islamic faith schools were established in 1998. By 2015, there were 10 primary and 11 secondary schools of this kind in England, out of approximately 150 Muslim schools in total, the vast majority being independent. The rising number of Islamic schools and other schools with a Muslim majority has raised concerns about social divisiveness, segregation, extremism, and the risk of radicalization. Between 2001 and 2011, there was a reduction in the percentage of Muslims without qualifications, an increase in the percentage of women participating in higher education, and a more than doubling of Muslims with degree-level qualifications. University or college offers young Muslims the opportunity to explore their identities away from family, community, and mosque. Islamic extremism on campus is considered a global problem, affecting higher education systems in many countries, including Muslim-majority nations. Some Muslims choose to study at Islamic seminaries, or Dar al-Ulum. There are now more than 25 registered seminaries in the UK, most catering to male students, though several are female-only, and some are co-educational. While many remain conservative and traditional, others seek to engage faith with modernity and prepare their students for academic and religious leadership in both secular contexts and mosques. There have been improvements in imam training and efforts to connect Islamic seminaries to the higher education sector. Studying at a Dar al-Ulum remains a cheaper alternative to further and higher education. As of now, there is no Islamically acceptable loan system for Muslim students and their families who avoid interest-based loan arrangements for tuition fee repayment. In the May 2005 elections, there were 48 Muslim candidates from the 3 major political parties, but only 4 were elected. This led to suggestions that the main political parties were reluctant to nominate Muslim candidates in winnable seats. All 4 MPs were from the Labour Party. Newly elected Shahid Malik MP and Sadiq Khan MP, and re-elected Mohammed Sarwar MP and Khalid Mahmood MP. In the European Parliament, there were 2 Muslim members, Syed Kamal and Sajjad Karim. In the 2010 elections, the number of Muslim MPs doubled to 8, with 3 women entering Parliament as the first female Muslim MPs. 6 of the elected MPs were from the Labour Party and 2 were Conservatives, marking the first Conservative Muslim MPs. The first Muslim MPs for the Conservative Party were Sajid Javid and Rehman Chisti. The new cabinet had only 1 Muslim minister, but she was the first female Muslim minister. Sayeeda Warsi, who is also a peer and a member of the House of Lords, became the Conservative Party's chairwoman and minister, without portfolio in the new coalition government. During the Conservatives' time in opposition, Warsi served as the shadow minister for community cohesion. Thank you for watching our video on the history and development of the Muslim community in the UK. We hope you found the information enlightening and gained a deeper understanding of the rich cultural and social contributions of British Muslims. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about similar topics, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us create more content like this, bringing you insights and stories that matter. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. We'd also love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. What part of the history surprised you the most? Are there other topics you'd like us to cover? Share your thoughts and join the conversation. Thank you for being a part of our community. Until next time, stay informed and stay curious. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.